Unpopular opinion, but I love the shorter days. Yeah, it can be a little depressing going to work in the dark and coming back home in the dark, but I appreciate it, mainly because it lets me play horror games during the eeriest time of the year, winter nights. I've picked up a few horror games lately, and I want to talk to you about an action-adventure heavy cosmic horror game I recently finished. It's called Slitterhead. Now, let me start out by saying I didn't gel with this game. I respect it though, and it definitely has some positive points. I know most people dislike negative reviews of games they enjoy, but let me say that my opinion of this game should have no bearing on whether or not you enjoy it. And hey, if you don't like my review, that's what the comments section is for. Love it, hate it, tear it apart, I welcome engagement. The only rule I have for the comment section of my videos is that you don't get personal. That's it, let's get started. Slitterhead plunges players into the heart of a gritty urban setting inspired by the 1990s Kowlong walled city. You play as Hyoki, a spirit nicknamed Night Owl by a pivotal character named Julie. Hyoki can possess animals and humans, opening up unique mechanics for combat and exploration. The Rarities, humans who can retain control and gain enhanced abilities while possessed, are central to the gameplay. The narrative explores themes of possession, time manipulation, and cosmic horror. While the possession mechanics are fun and innovative, the story itself feels clunky. Dialogue is often awkward, with random English phrases thrown in that disrupt immersion.
See.
How can I?
The overall plot is ambitious but convoluted, with time loop elements that can be hard to follow. Despite these shortcomings, the game includes 2 endings, adding some replayability. Achieving the good ending is fairly straightforward, and both endings can be unlocked in a single playthrough. Gameplay and mechanics is where Slitterhead truly shines. The possession mechanic is central to both combat and traversal. If you can't physically reach an area, you can seamlessly possess someone already there. Combat encourages strategic decision making, as players select 2 rarities for missions but control only one at a time. Switching between rarities or possessing bystanders adds a layer of tactical depth. Combat animations are fluid and satisfying, with attack and traversal mechanics that feel polished. Leaping between grapple points has a smooth, Spider-Man-like quality, adding to the game's mobility and fun factor. Health regeneration for unpossessed characters is a clever feature, encouraging players to adapt their strategy mid-combat. A skill progression system tied to points from missions, challenges, and memories gives a nice sense of growth, though the mission structure is linear. There were a lot of chase sequences. I would go as far as to say there were too many of them. They often took place in the same part of the city, making what would otherwise have felt like a large urban landscape seem more like a paltry city block. They were frustrating as well, as there were a lot of barriers in progressing them. I felt like these sequences were simply space fillers, and after the first couple of them, I actually dreaded when I sensed one was coming up. They made the game seem dull and repetitive rather than making the game more exciting, which is really important for both action-adventure and horror games. Slitterhead delivers a visual experience drenched in atmosphere. This fictionalized version of Kowlong walled city is a character in itself. The city's dark alleys are alive with gritty details. Neon signs flicker against dingy facades, tight streets are packed and bustling with people, and the ever-present shadows cloak everything in a sense of foreboding. The art direction borrows heavily from urban cyberpunk and horror manga like Gantz and Tokyo Ghoul, giving the world a surreal, unsettling vibe. The creature designs, particularly the Slitterheads themselves, feel like they crawled out of the pages of a Lovecraftian nightmare. Their grotesque transformations and eerie movements remind me of body horror films, with just enough creativity to stand apart. That said, while the visuals excel in mood and setting, they don't break any new ground in terms of technical fidelity. The textures and character models, though competent, occasionally lack the polish expected of a modern title. Still, the art direction's ability to immerse you in this unsettling world outweighs any graphical limitations. Akira Yamaoka, the legendary composer behind Silent Hill, was at the helm for Slitterhead's soundtrack, so you might expect hauntingly memorable melodies. Unfortunately, that's not quite what we got. The music feels surprisingly uninspired, more elevator ambiance than spine-tingling horror. While not outright bad, it's unmemorable, which is disappointing for a cosmic horror game, where music can be such an integral part. On the other hand, the sound effects shine. From the guttural snarls of the Slitterheads to the satisfying crunch of attacks, every audio cue feels meticulously crafted to heighten immersion. Environmental sounds, dripping water in dank corridors, distant murmurs of the city, layer the atmosphere in ways the music fails to. If the soundtrack had matched the quality of the sound effects, Slitterhead could have delivered an auditory experience to rival its visual storytelling. As it stands, the sound design carries the weight where the music stumbles. At $50, Slitterhead occupies a premium price point, which feels a little steep given what's on offer. The game's semi-linear structure means you're funneled through a tightly crafted and restrictive narrative experience. While this approach works for storytelling, it limits the replay value. That said, there are incentives for a second playthrough. The different endings encourage you to revisit key choices, and completionists will enjoy collecting points and unlocking all the skills. Thankfully, obtaining the good ending doesn't require starting from scratch. You can revisit select missions to unlock it without redoing the entire game. As it stands, I'd recommend waiting for a sale unless you're deeply intrigued by the premise or a die-hard fan of the studio. I score games based on 5 categories, with a maximum of 2 points each. Add them together and you get a score out of 10 that I call the Maestro Mark. Narrative, 1 point. Ambitious but convoluted and weighed down by awkward dialogue. Gameplay mechanics, 1.5 points. Combat and traversal mechanics are the game's saving grace. Graphics and art direction, 1.5 points. The art direction nails the mood even if the graphics aren't groundbreaking. Music and sound, 1 point. Forgettable music but excellent sound effects. Value and replayability, 0.5 points. Overpriced with limited replay value. This gives a Maestro Mark of 5.5, which means maybe play if it's free. Slitterhead had its moments, but ultimately it didn't live up to its potential. What do you think? Let me know in the comments and don't hold back. Thanks for watching and we'll see you for the next one.